Hey team, Jen here. Welcome to week 5. Week 5 is a very important week. It is our midterm, so we are halfway through the class, and I wanted to congratulate you on making it to the halfway point. The halfway point is a relieving place to be because you have a lot of work that's behind you, you've done a lot of foundational work, but it's also a strenuous point because you have half of the semester left to go, and that second half of the semester can sometimes feel a little bit more daunting. And certainly that is true for week 5, where there are some pretty high stakes deliverables due. So I wanted to take this opportunity to give you some tips that can lead you into week 5 and feel successful. Week 4, you got a little bit of a break as you finished up reading Doris Lessing's The Grass is Singing. And I was very happy to see a couple students in the class continuing the discussions from week 3 about the novel. And I think that we came up with a lot of critical insights about the text that could possibly turn into paper topics. So anybody who's working on The Grass is Singing as their final paper project, one tip that I have for you is it's always a smart idea to go back to the discussion forums as a place to hunt down potential paper topics for your research paper. If you find yourself not having enough ideas or lacking inspiration about a text, the discussion forum is a great place to get ideas and to see students' thoughts about the text that can really inspire your own. So that's a word of advice for you as we move into week 5. In week 5, we begin reading Jean Rice's novel Wide Sargasso Sea, which is hailed as the first post-colonial novel. Now, when you start reading this novel, if you have read Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, you will undoubtedly notice that this book is a prequel to Jane Eyre. If you haven't read Jane Eyre, well, then, you might not notice that, although you don't necessarily you don't necessarily need to read Jane Eyre to pick up on the vibe of Jane Eyre in this novel, because Jane Eyre is such a huge part of our culture in terms of film and spin-offs and just the general tone of Jane Eyre has inspired so many modern works, contemporary works, that it's unlikely that you will not be familiar at least with the storyline of Jane Eyre. But anyway, Wide Sargasso Sea is Rice's prequel to the classic text, and it raises a lot of questions, and it asks us to really analyze our sense of the primary characters of that text, mainly Bertha Mason, whose story this tale centers around. Her name in this text is Antoinette, and you'll soon see that Rice is asking us to reconsider the strong woman motif in this text, which is exactly what I'm asking you to do in your discussion board post about Wide Sargasso Sea this week. As usual, however, feel free to run with your own contexts when it comes to any text on the table. The gender issues in Wide Sargasso Sea are almost unavoidable. Particularly for me, you may know I'm a gender studies person, so I'm always drawn to that dichotomy of male, female, masculine, feminine anyway. But particularly in Wide Sargasso Sea, it's really unavoidable. However, there are a lot of other things going on here, so don't hesitate to hone in on anything that strikes you as important in this text. Also, I will be making a post in the forums this week about who I call X in this novel, and I'm interested to know your thoughts about X. So please make sure that you watch my video in the forums this week. It's sure to engage a lot of discussion about gender and sexuality, and especially masculinity, which is a concern of mine scholastically. This week as well, in week 5, you have your rough draft due for your final research paper. Here at the midterm, conjuring up a rough draft can seem more than daunting, but I want you to think about what the function of a rough draft is. what it looks like for you, what your process looks like when you begin the drafting process. Now, as a graduate student, I think it's very important that you go through a number of drafts before you reach your final product. But this rough draft is your initial draft. So it's a starting place for you. It's a place for you to dedicate and commit words to paper concerning your final research project. So the rough draft can take a number of shapes. For some of you, it might look like a vague outline, the bones of what you want to do. For others, it could be a solid introduction and then a blurb, maybe about some core paragraphs, and then a solid conclusion. For others, it could be a full, 37-page essay with proper works cited. Every rough draft is going to look different. But as you go into week 5, I want you to think about what the drafting process signifies for you, for your writing process. Is it something that you tend to need in order to move your line of inquiry forward? What does that look like? Now, the closer that you can get your rough draft to a final product, the better feedback you're going to get from me in the gradebook and also from your peers in the workshop. If you deliver a vague outline, a bare bones outline like you were taught to do, perhaps as an undergraduate, something like Roman numeral 1 introduction, I'm going to hit this bullet point, and this bullet point. Roman numeral 2, paragraph 1, I'm going to hit this and that. It's unlikely that you're going to get feedback that's fruitful. So the most detail that you can offer, even if it's just posing additional questions or exploratory context that might be interesting, or just if you're pasting some quotes from secondary and primary sources that you might want to synthesize, whatever you can do to give us the best sense possible of what your line of inquiry is looking like, that's going to be the kind of work that gets the feedback that's going to help revision happen. So keep that in mind as you work forward. I am also here to help you develop your lines of inquiry if you need that. And I am actually meeting this week with 4 students. I met last week with 3. A lot of students are utilizing my online office hours, which is wonderful. So keep that in mind when you do your rough draft this week. Finally, this week, now is the week to also start thinking about your next response paper, which will be on Wide Sargasso Sea. This week, as you close read and analyze the text, I want you to think about a paper topic that really stands out to you as unique and interesting, sexy, relevant, thought-provoking, critical, all of those things. I want you to start thinking about what that looks like, what that paper might look like. And I am here for you as usual. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you here next time. Bye for now.